God bless you, folks. We thank you for joining us. We continue these lessons. I've been talking about the altar, the brazen altar, that it was actually a temporary um, a law that was given to Moses, having a shadow of good things to come. And the shadow of things to come always pointed towards the Lord, Christ coming. But everything in it has a great significance, all the furnishing and the bronze lever, and the bronze altar, and the holy place, the candlesticks, golden candlestick, the altar of incense, the shewbread, the table. And we've been bringing that and teaching that little by little. The difference on the way I'm teaching is because I'm trying to show a platform where we can see the symbolics of the furnishings and the tabernacle itself. And the tabernacle, as we know, was commanded by God to Moses. And it was to be set up for God dwelling place. Now, this doesn't limit God of who he is. He wasn't just boxed up in a tent, but he wanted to show himself, because God can show himself in many ways. But he wanted to show his people. There was a chosen people, the people of Israel, that were chosen, and they were going to be his people, and they were going to be a nation, and they were going to be, God's children. But we see the history of it too, as well. We know that God had flooded the world at one point because of the sins of the world. Now, I might as well touch a little bit on that, because we can have a better understanding to where we're at now. And we go back to Genesis, and we see in Genesis 6, in the first sixth chapter, first verse, it came to pass when men began to multiply on the earth, face of the earth. The daughters were born unto them, that the sons of God saw the daughters of men, that they were fair, and they took them wives of all which they chose. Now, God, and we've been having this theology of that these were angels that looked upon to take upon wife, but these were not angels that came and had intercourse with women. God spoke as the sons of God, as men. We are considered the sons of God. So we need to also get that straight, because for many years I used to believe that because I heard it. But once you really analyze it, you find out that uh, angels are spirits, and angels are not flesh. They have no sperm cells and no blood, meaning they would have to have blood. And so it just wipes that right off, right away, because they would have to have blood. Angels don't have blood and they don't have sperm. They're spirits. And so that the sons of God saw the daughters of men that were fair, and they took them wives of all which they chose. And the Lord said, my spirit shall not always strive with men. Now, again, he's specifying men. He didn't say angels. He said men. For that he also is flesh. Tells you right there. Yet his day shall be 120 years. Okay, so this is a point where God also shortened the years of men, because men live to be actually, if you look at verse 27 and 5, you see that Methuselah lived after he begot Lemah 782 years, or that was 26 and 27, and all the days of Methuselah were 969 years, and he died. So they were living 900, 800 years old. But here, God is where he shortened the years of men. There were giants. Now, here he's saying there were giants in the earth in those days. And also after that, when the sons of God came in unto the daughters of men, and they bore children to them, the same became mighty men, which were of old, men of renown. And God saw that the wickedness of men was great in the earth, and that every imagination of the thoughts of his heart was evil continually. And can you imagine the next verse says, it repented the Lord that he had made man on the earth. It grieved him at his heart. So the beginning of these tapes, all we talked about was God and who he is, and his omnipotence, his omnipresence, his omniscient. He's everywhere at once. He's all powerful. You know, he's God everywhere, all at one time. Uh, he's knowing all. He knows everything. He knows what you're going to think before you think. So this is showing who God is. But this is also showing the feelings of God. And we have to understand what we're talking about right now with the tabernacle. We want to understand that all these settings and these illustrations and these furnishings that were in the tabernacle are divine and heavenly. They represent divinity and heavenly things, the shadow of things in heaven. Okay. So here's a God, the only true God, There's no other God. There's no three gods and three persons in God. There's only one God. All right. Um, Saw the wickedness of man was great on the earth, and that every imagination or thought of his heart was only evil continually. Every imagination. So, you think today that, oh my God, it's so bad. Things are getting worse. And, yeah, it is. But we have to understand the scripture that says there hasn't been anything that has been done that hasn't already been done. And in other words, this sin that God is showing here, every imagination of thoughts in his heart was only continue. It repented that he made man. It grieved his heart. It shows you God being a person, God being a man, God being a spirit. And we explained throughout those tapes how God became a man. And in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And God was manifested in the flesh, justified in spirit, seen of angels. We beheld him as the only begotten of the Father, and he was received up in glory. We read that also in 2 Timothy 3:16. Great is the mystery of godliness. God was manifested in the flesh, justified in spirit, and so on. God was. That doesn't mean there were two. That doesn't mean there's three. And doesn't mean that, have a lot of, we have Trinitarians that speak of the persons of God, and like God the Father is a person, God the Son's a person, and God the Holy Spirit also is another person. I heard someone say grace is a person. Well, we have to understand the word better than that. And it repented the Lord that he made man. So God regretted making man. Hey, I'm sorry I made him. This is out of my control. In that sense, and I'm just using my own, which I probably shouldn't, but I'm trying to relate what he's saying, that it it repented. He was sorry he made him. Why? Because he gave them a will. He's given men a will. He didn't make them like the angels. Everything that is in heaven was created by him. It was created for his purpose. But the difference between the angels that were created to serve God and the humanity that was created to serve God is that men have a choice and a free will. And so this free will brought them to wickedness, and God saw it. The Lord said, I will destroy man whom I have created from the face of the earth, both man and beast, the creeping things and fowls of the air, for it repented me that I have made them. Well, now, my God was pretty angry. So that goes to show you how God feels regarding wickedness and sin. There's no place for it in heaven. There's no place for sin in heaven. We have to remember that. But thank God for Jesus. And this is what we've been talking about, the bronze altar where the sacrifices were brought and made for the atonement, the bulls and the goats, and and different things that were used for an atonement of man's sin. Without bloodshed, there's no remission. So there had to be a first bloodshedding. And of course, we remember the bloodshedding of the animal first use in Adam and Eve. They had to, to kill an animal. That was the first bloodshed. I'm speaking of animal wise, that was used to cover them up, you know. And so we see here, he said, I'm going to destroy them. Everything I created, I'm going to destroy. God created heaven and earth, the waters, and divided. He took 6 days to create everything, the sun, the moon, the stars, the sand, and the land, and the garden, and everything that man could use to be able to, you know, succeed and have. Not only did he make everything for man, he he made provisions for them, but he said, you're going to dominate it. You're going to own it. It's yours. It's paradise. See, they were in the Garden of Eden, paradise. And what makes it such paradise is there was no pollution, there was no roaches and bugs and things creeping things that would bother you and sting you, and you know the ground wasn't all muddy and mushy, and you know it was you couldn't even imagine what it looked like. There's nothing on TV they could show. Sometimes there's the most beautiful things that they can show. It almost looks like it could be heavenly. But even that cannot compare to what the paradise of Garden of Eden was like. When God said to Adam, you shall dominate over everything. There was no hot streaking sun. There was no rain. It didn't rain to flood. There was a dew that would it was the source of how you say uh, to water. It would water, take care of the garden, the dew, a, a moist, misty type of dew, but it never rained. So, and it was perfect. And the greatest thing above all is not only that would live forever, but that they would walk with God, and God would talk to them orally and speak with them and walk in the garden with them. They had God right there. They had access to him right there. But what happens, man? And the old serpent, well, okay. All right. So from that point, when Adam decided and Eve decided to eat of the fruit, and they shared it together, and they were cast out of that garden, and God had to make a plan after that for mankind to have redemption, because there was no, it was lawlessness. There was no law. People did whatever they wanted to do, killed whoever they wanted to, did whatever they wanted to, took whatever they wanted to. And so, because of that fall, and the Bible calls it disobedience, then through disobedience brought death and sin. All right. God said, I'm going to destroy them, every creeping thing. And it repented him. He says again, for it repented me that I have made them. Twice he said, it repented me. And what I've been doing is marking my Bible with yellow. I have not marked the whole Bible, but I like to highlight how it repented, okay, the Lord that he made man. And he says it twice in verse 6 and 7. But Noah found grace in the eyes of the Lord. Praise God. There was somebody. Can you imagine? If it hadn't been that way and Moses wasn't or Noah wasn't there to find grace in the eyes of God, do you suppose that God would have just destroyed everything and not try again? I'm just saying, could you imagine that? I'm not trying to speculate that it could happen or would have happened, or that was the thinking. I said, can you imagine that if there was no grace in that man, everything would have been destroyed. Now, God may have would have it. I'm just saying things that may be. He would have started over, but I don't want to stick with that too much because it's not biblical. Okay, but Noah found grace in the eyes of the Lord. Those are the generations of Noah. Noah was a just man and perfect in his generation. And Noah walked with God. Isn't that awesome? Noah walked with God. He found grace. He was perfect and a just man. All right. He had begotten three sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And the earth was corrupt before God, and the earth was filled with violence. Violence. Nothing but violence. All right. I'm still marking. I hope that you would take a notepad. People don't write anymore. They do so much texting and Instagramming and all kinds of stuff. And it's not even to do with God or anything. It's just, I believe that's a tool of the enemy that has come in this generation to take the minds of people off what's really happening and what's going to happen. If you have seen your worst horror movie, I think about Stephen King. He's a producer. And horror movies. You could think about the worst horror movie that scared you to death. The End of the World. They got so many movies on the end of the world and nuclear and disaster and flooding. And just chaos. But that's not to be compared to what is coming. I'm telling you, folks, there's some things coming, and God showed me before the COVID, and I'll have to tell you this dream on the next tape. When I was 17 years old, I had dreams for a whole year. And all the dreams that I had dealt with either earthquakes, floodings, tornadoes, uh, homes being destroyed by water, and I'd find myself on top of houses floating in the ocean among other people holding on for their lives. I found myself climbing bridges, and the bridges start shaking and I fall to my death. I found myself seeing riots and like what we're seeing today. When I was 17, when I see things happen around the world, I can relate to it, to dreams that I had. When I see a particular thing happen, a dream will come to me that I had. I'll tell you more about that, but it's remarkable. And God has given me things that He has shown me throughout my life that are tremendous. And before the COVID, I want to bring that dream up. Uh, maybe in between these videos, I can uh, bring some of that out so that you can be touched and believe that God is still giving dreams to people. If you have a dream pertaining to what's the world is all about, what's going on, I'd like to hear it. I'd like to you to share it with me, and I would like to put it on the video as well and speak about it. And if there's a dream you don't understand, we could pray about it. See, God didn't always show me a dream and I could wake up and understand what it was. Sometimes it takes months to understand something, but sometimes God could show you things right away what it means. So dreams and visions and you know, when I was younger, I'd have so many. My mother said, "Well, that was like a trance you went into, and or that was a vision, and or that was you know, a vision or a dream." But they're prophetic, and I like to, I believe that God's going to share more things with me about things that are coming because we're sitting so comfortable right now. But I know there's a lot of people that fear about things that are coming, and they're trying to get the supplies they need, and food and shelter, and they think about their children, and they want to be ready for the disaster that's coming, this depression that's coming to this world. It's going to be global. I don't know why I went off there, but we'll talk more about that. And so he wanted to destroy, found grace in the sight of Noah. Noah has three sons. And the earth also was corrupt before God, and the earth was filled with violence. What does that sound like? Is there any familiarity here with then and now? Well, we're going to see that in a minute. I'm going to try to fit it in before I close this one. All right. And so The whole earth was corrupt and violent. And God looked upon the earth, and behold, it was corrupt, for all flesh had corrupted his way upon the earth. All flesh. We're not talking about a handful of people. There were hundreds and thousands, and I'm sure there were millions of people already on the earth. And God said unto Noah, the end of all flesh is come before me, for the earth is filled with violence through them, and behold, I will destroy them with the earth. Destroy them with the earth. It's violent, it's corrupt, it's destructive, it's evil. Okay. Well, let's see something here. As in the times of Noah, as in the times of Noah. Okay, we're going to read that in Matthew's. That's the one I will show you and compare. Let's go to 24. A lot of us are familiar with this chapter. 24 and 37, there it is. But as the days of Noah were, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. Now watch this. He said in Genesis, we just read it. Every imagination, they're corrupt, they're wicked, they're evil, their imagination continually. As the day of Noah, Matthew 24:37. As the days of Noah were, so shall the coming of the Son of Man be. For as in the days that were before the flood, they were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage until the day that Noah entered into the ark, and knew not until the flood came and took them all away. So shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. As it was then, it will be now before the Son of Man returns. They're eating, drinking. In other words, they're partying, drinking, getting drunk, marrying and remarrying. And, there's people that get married and the next day they realize they're married and didn't know they got married. It's just wicked. And now what we have going on today is so wicked. We have the transgender in our schools, how do they say it? They said they're entertaining these kids. I'm trying to think of the word they use. I've seen it on YouTube. And they're entertaining our children in a sexual manner. And then there was another transgender I saw and was saying, look, we represent ourselves and we are who we are. But never was this meant to be for our children. This is an adult entertainment and doesn't belong in the schools. I saw that today earlier. She was, well, she's a she. She's really a he, but she was still, it was, he was still dressed as a woman and was speaking up against it. Folks, were living in a violent and a wicked generation. A generation that is saying good is evil and evil is good. I saw something in regards, and I'm not sure how because YouTube can offer some stuff sometimes that are not believable. I seen one where they showed Trump being arrested and put in jail. So you really have to kind of be careful. Uh, but I know what I'm saying is true because I heard it through the news and the radio, and people are talking about it. But at any rate, we're living in those kind of days, and it's only going to get darker before it gets lighter. Violence was filled the earth. We're seeing violence in the earth now. We're seeing how Russia is overtaking, the country, Ukraine, and we see China already getting set up with their ships out there towards Thailand. The, we have a weak president, first of all, and so I don't want to get political, but things are moving in that direction. But remember this, that God is not going to allow anything that he doesn't want to happen. Our job is for us to be not fearful of those things that are coming. But he said, when you see these things, behold, look up, for your redemption draws nigh. God bless you, folks. Pray without ceasing.